The 12th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Saturday at 6 p.m.
Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
What the oil spill did was to alert people to the environment. So it's known as the spill that was heard around the world.
That spill heard around the world was off the coast of Santa Barbara in 1969, sparking a national movement to protect the environment. Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, Earth Day. Joining us to talk more about it are Dr. Richard Komp, an international solar energy expert and educator, Rita Corl, president of the Nebraska Solar Energy Society, and Daniel Lossie, winner of the 2009 Friend of the Environment Award. Thank you all so much for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us here.
You're welcome. Dr. Komp, we're going to start with you. Obviously, first Earth Day, April 22nd, 1970, but we saw problems leading up to that. What were some of the red flags prior to that time frame?
Well, actually, I was sort of a Johnny-come-lately when it came to being concerned about global warming. I knew about it before that, but it wasn't until I started working with Dan Trivich on photovoltaics in 1960 that he explained to me just how serious global warming was going to be. Remember, Arrhenius wrote the original paper laying out all the details in 1896. So we have been warned.
Okay, and I'm curious, in that discussion that you had in 1960, talk about some of the content of that discussion.
Okay, in addition to global warming, actually, we're talking about the concern that Charles Kettering had. He was one of the persons that helped start a little company called General Motors, and he was getting worried about peak oil, even then, because obviously it is a finite resource, and we were using it quite fast, and so he was looking for alternatives. In fact, my first work was paid for by him. I never actually met him because he was very sick and he died shortly after that, but that's the other concern was we can't keep using fossil fuels because we'll run out of them, and of course now you know, more than about a half a century later, it's become much more critical. We peaked out worldwide 2 years ago, as far as I can tell.
Key players in every movement, and this one is no exception. Talk to us about the individuals who really got Earth Day going.
Okay, well, Dennis Hayes was the person who organized it, and he was a young, somewhat, I won't say radical, but flamboyant environmentalist who was pretty anti-establishment person who wanted to do this. And he organized Earth Day, and then he did a lot of other things after that. I knew him personally. I didn't know him until after he'd organized Earth Day. I was a professor down at Western Kentucky University in Bowling Green, and when we celebrated Earth Day, did get a whole batch of students together to do that, even in 1970. Then later on, Dennis Hayes, when Jimmy Carter was president, and we saw the energy crisis as the moral equivalent of war, Jimmy Carter started the Solar Energy Research Institute, which is now NREL in Boulder, Colorado, same place. And Dennis Hayes was a great critic of that, so Jimmy Carter punished him by making him in charge of it. And I remember him, I told him, that's what happens when you complain too much.
Now, to give us an idea of just how important it is that you are here in Nebraska, before we talk about your visit specifically, Tell us all the places, or give us some examples of some of the places you've been to talk about this very issue.
On this very trip, I left Jonesport, Maine. I live in Jonesport, Maine, on the coast, in a nice house that is off the grid. I haven't paid an electric bill in 21 years, and I have no furnace and no thermostat in Maine, which doesn't have nearly as much potential for solar heating as Nebraska does. You're really blessed here. I went off and I went down, worked in Harlem a bit with the Addicts Rehabilitation Center, teaching them how to manufacture little battery chargers. They already make 60-watt modules there. These are solar awnings for the brownstones in Harlem. And then I visited Florida, spent Christmas with my sister, and went to Nicaragua for 2.5 months. By the way, I didn't know I was coming here when I left on that trip. I haven't been home yet, so I had to arrange. I'm still in the same clothes I had then. And anyway, I teach a summer school course in Managua in February, and they insisted that I come down, so I'm not in Maine during January and February, and then mid-March, then I discovered I was going to go to Rwanda. So I arranged for a friend. I had friends drop caches of things to repack my suitcase. So in Nicaragua, I worked on a project with the Grupo Phoenix, which is a nonprofit group run by Nicaraguans. And one part of it is now, it was a little cottage industry, it's a little bigger now, is a company that got the contract from the Nicaraguan Ministry of Education to solar power every school in the country that wasn't connected to the utility group, which like most of them. 924 schools we installed solar panels on in 2.5 months. 6 teams were out there installing. Some of them were doing 3 schools a day. And in remote places, like sometimes I have a marvelous picture which is in the Maine Sun, which we haven't printed out yet, of the people crossing the Rio Coco in a dugout canoe with solar panels in it, with the 3 pack mules swimming alongside, because you discovered they don't like to ride in canoes. So that was all part of it. That was for the literacy program. See, campesinos, that's peasants, work during the day very hard. Sun goes down every night at 6 o'clock in the tropics. So they need the lights in the schools to teach them how to read and write. So they're going to bring the literacy up to 96%. Then I came back and I spent 4 days in Boston at the Building Energy Conference, which is a big thing down at the World Trade Center, where I gave an all-day workshop on photovoltaics, that's the solar cell, thermal hybrid systems, including building integrated ones. I just gave a very short version of that in the architecture department right here an hour ago.
Okay, so you weren't quite certain you were coming to Nebraska, but you're here, and I'm curious, as I'm sure our viewers are, what is your message going to be overall to the Nebraskans?
Well, first I went to Rwanda for a month, and I came directly from Rwanda here. And the message here is that renewable energy is very real. I'm trying to, that's why we're doing the workshops with the kids where they make the little solar battery chargers, because I don't want it to be something for your Buck Rogers future. It is here today and now. You don't have to wait. The price of the photovoltaic cells and modules has now dropped to the point that we're in Maine, where we have much higher electric bills than you do here. We've reached a crossing point where the solar electricity is as cheap as the electricity from the conventional sources. Well, here you have a little ways to go for that, but you also have distributed generation, where you have the solar electricity made directly where it's being used, which gives a great deal of security. We worry about national security and so forth, and when you have bad weather and power lines are down, you know, I haven't had a clock blink in years because I've always had electric power. So it's secure, it is affordable, and the cheapest way you can heat your hot water for your showers and everything is with solar heaters, not with electricity or gas or something.
Okay, and Rita, you obviously know quite a bit about this gentleman. You were partially responsible for bringing him here and are following his journey here in Nebraska. Tell us a little bit, why him, why now, and how did you become involved in all of this?
You bet. I met Dr. Kump at the Midwest Renewable Energy Fair, and that website would be www.themrea, so themrea.org if people are interested. It's the largest renewable energy fair in the world. It's held in Stevens Point, 2.5 hours north of Madison. I saw Dr. Kump. He was my next to last speaker that I went to see on the third day of the seminars, and I liked his heart. I liked the way he did all the international outreach, his intelligence, and the way he could explain very complex processes in a way that you could actually understand it without having a science background. And so I asked him then if he would consider coming here, and I began emailing in August about that. And the Nebraska Solar Energy Society hosted him. We've worked very hard to put a schedule together with 12 public events. There are 6 school outreach events, 5 solar panel making kits that the kids are doing hands-on this school, like from 6th grade, 7th, and 8th grade students. We had our first one at Mars Magnet on the 13th. And it's just been a joy to be with him and to record everything he says as much as I can to get the information. We'll have him back probably sometime this coming year. I'd like to have him and some other folks from the Maine Solar Energy Association, of which the Nebraska Solar Energy Society is going to be a partner, to have more ongoing education, like the solar hybrid panels that he's talking about. We'd like him to come here and teach some workshops in that.
Wonderful.
So one of our goals in having him here this next 2 weeks is to do the outreach to the schools, the outreach to the public. He's a keynote at the Earth Day in Omaha. He's down in Lincoln as a presenter down there as well, working with the Nebraska Economic Development Corporation and the Nebraska Energy Office. So we have a lot of, he's very busy. The poor guy doesn't have a day off.
I was going to say, for a gentleman who didn't know he was coming to Nebraska,
for 14
boy, he's hit
days
the
we were
ground
working him every minute.
running. Well, and let me ask you, you are president of this society that you're referencing, and we did put together kind of a goals and objectives sheet so that people could get
Sure.
a better understanding of this society of which you are a part. So if we could go to that graphic, you can walk people through
Can I see
those
it down
goals.
here? Okay. Teach solar energy principles to the next generation. That's our main goal because they're the ones that are going to have to work with the crises that are developing on the planet, and we're going to have a K through 12 energy education program that we're putting together. And tagged into that bottom goal, develop a small passive solar home educational center. We actually now, that is mushrooming out into a beautiful project with the Alwine Hall Prairie or Alwine Prairie group with Dr. Thomas Bragg. We're going to have a home that will either be off-grid and be net zero energy that way, or we might have it on-grid and actually have it be sub-zero energy and putting energy back into the grid. Part of that K through 12 program we want to have is not only on energy efficiency, but truly intelligent building design, working with passive solar building principles that people have been using for 2,500 years. They have a tendency to go in cycles, just like the Nebraska Solar Energy Society was active in the late 70s through the mid-90s under Dr. Bing Chen's stewardship. It's activated again as of last May because of this next cycle of energy crisis that appears to be on our horizon that we're moving through in trying to get that same type of education out again to people, and having that with the children, they will be able to take it home to their families, as well as they're the voters, the consumers, the builders and designers of the future. So we're real excited about having them have that level of education. Teach the Teachers program will be looking at ongoing educational workshops for teachers. Dr. Chen will be spearheading this with Dr. Neil Grangenet in the College of Education. And there's also an iTest program similar to what they've done on their SceneBot robotics program, where they'll be actually having the teachers helping to write some of the curricula for the classroom as well. So it'll be a very dynamic, hands-on program utilizing STEM principles. I would like to see children be able to apply math and physics in their everyday living environment, being able to dissect the current buildings in which they live and go to school in, and see how they could design them better and be able to ask for those in the future as well as design them for themselves. Networking Greater Nebraska, we do have the Lauren Isley Nature Center that will be being built at the Almine Prairie Preserve, but we're also looking at a possible site at Grand Island, which would serve for an educational center during the state fair that's going to be being built out there, as well as a year-round educational facility for children and public in that mid part of the state to be able to come to and get education. The third center will be out near Scotts Bluff, Nebraska, so that'll serve the western side of the state. So NESAS has a goal of providing a center where people can come to and see things in real time in operation. We're going to have webcams and 24/7 access to the functioning of these buildings, as well as the meteorological data streaming in so you can see how it's functioning relative to our environment, and that K through 12 curricula that'll be downloadable for any teacher to use for education in the classroom. So we're not just looking at building efficiency and design, we're also looking at the passive solar design principles. The other thing that's happening during Dr. Komp's visit, like we mentioned earlier at the beginning of the program, working with the architectural students here, he's going to be meeting also with the architectural faculty and engineering staff at UNL on Monday as well. So we're trying to not just get this through the K through 12 program, but post-secondary, helping to further develop what they already have going and some great energy efficiency, and adding passive solar design principles with that. Short green lectures to politicians and public political groups. We had a meeting with Congressman Lee Terry yesterday, and we met with one of the representatives for Senator Ben Nelson yesterday afternoon. We would like to keep doing that type of education to politicians and political groups so that they can hopefully form one united base of understanding, and both of those particular politicians that we visited with and their aides were very aware of the energy needs, and they already had some goals already started, and so we'll be able to hopefully have a synergistic effect with the Nebraska Solar Energy Society and seeing some neat changes come through for Nebraska in the future.
Excellent. Now, Daniel, we have had the international, national, we've had the statewide perspective, and I want to kind of narrow the scope here a little bit and talk to you. We're obviously preaching to the choir because I understand you're going to be receiving a very special award, the 2009 Friend of the Environment Award.
Thank you.
My question is twofold. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Tell us about the award and what it was that you did to earn this.
The award is given by the Earth Day Omaha Planning Group. Every year when they celebrate Earth Day, they give an award to an individual and to an organization who has been taking strides kind of above and beyond just a normal job to help move the community in an environmental direction, either as demonstration projects or helping organize things. It's a community-based selection process. 6 people were nominated for the individual awards, all of them very deserving. And then the committee decides who gets it for that year. And nobody's told me quite yet why I've received it, but I have an inkling that it's due to some of the community organizing work that I've done, really trying to get grassroots support, getting a lot of media attention to the green movement here in Omaha, connecting people together, really highlighting a lot of good things that were already happening that I didn't have any role in. I was just connecting them together and then letting people know that they were happening, but then also starting some new things. We had the first annual Green Homes Tour last year, which Tim Hemsath chaired that committee, but I helped out on that. We had monthly green living workshops, kind of like what Rita was talking about, and they were targeting really practical things that people could do in Omaha to live more sustainably. Everything from energy efficiency and renewable energy to waste management and local foods and things like that. So I guess it's because I was working in my job doing energy efficiency, but in my spare time, my hobby was volunteering last year. So I did a lot of volunteering to connect groups together, and there are a lot of deserving people in Omaha who could have gotten the award also.
Well, we're really glad you're here, because when we listen to people like Dr. Komp and Rita speak, I mean, they're doing some pretty significant, obviously impactful things that are going to affect not only those of us here locally, but as we've heard Dr. Komp speak, around the world. So what I really want for the viewers to hear is your perspective. I think there are many people who think, I can't make a very big difference in this. I'm just one person. You know, what could I possibly be doing to help make an impact? And I want you to speak, if you could, to those viewers about the day-to-day things, simple things that we can all be doing to pitch in.
Some of the very simple things are to reduce how much energy you need to use in your home. Your average home built prior to 1995 could easily save 25 to 30% in energy costs and energy use. Examples of that would be adding more efficient light bulbs, the CFL light bulbs, turning off lights when you're not using them. Reduction is the primary goal here, is to reduce how much energy we actually have to use. Making your building envelope, meaning the walls and attic and floors, more energy efficient with insulation, sealing air leaks that cause drafts, because your mom probably told you to close the door. You don't want to pay to heat the outside, but even with your door closed, there are many leaks in the typical home. So making a home very energy efficient, it's a good integration with renewable energy, because now you don't need 10 solar panels on a home, you might only need 5 to help out. Then there's water conservation, which would be water-wise faucets and aerators for shower heads and bathroom sinks. And again, not using water that you don't need to use, turning the faucet off when you brush your teeth, they have little levers that you can turn water on and off as you're washing hands and washing dishes and still keep the same temperature, insulating your hot water pipes. There are so many simple, easy things, from behavior change to technology change, that cost very little, and actually there's a good return on your investment if you want to look at it from an economic standpoint. One home in Omaha has reduced their utilities by over 60%, how much energy they use, and that was an existing home built in 1922 through both behavior and technology changes.
Okay, and if there are people that are watching who are thinking, okay, I can appreciate what he's saying and I'd like to become more involved, what would be the first phone call that they would make? What did you do when you woke up one day and said, I really want to become more actively engaged in this?
That's a good question. The Green Omaha Coalition is really kind of a good organization that's bringing together all these various groups that are already doing good things, and it's kind of becoming a central hub so they can help people find where they fit best, whether they want to work with solar energy or whether they want to work with local food issues or waste and recycling streams or energy efficiency in homes or transportation issues. And that's really kind of a good clearinghouse, and that website is www.greenomahacoalition.org. Okay. There are great resources all around the state too. The Nebraska Energy Office actually offers low-interest loans for homeowners who want to make energy-efficient improvements, 5% low-interest loans, which will soon be 2.5% interest loans because of the American Reinvestment and Rehabilitation Act that Congress passed. Your local utility is a good starting point on the energy side and water conservation side of things. They might not have the capacity to do energy audits themselves, but they would have resources to point you in the right direction. The Nebraska Environmental Trust also is a good clearinghouse for finding people who want to get grants and finding out what some of the big projects are around the state. So if you're in the Omaha area, it's the Green Omaha Coalition. There's also a green organization in Lincoln. I think it's called Green by Design, Lincoln Green by Design, that would allow people to kind of network and plug in. The Sierra Club has been active for years, and they're still active in a big role in some of these kind of coordinating organizations. So
excellent. So we've given some really good practical examples for people to be able to pitch in and help, and then kind of given them some other ideas if they want to become more actively engaged in this and part of a group or more of a formalized.
And also a great place in Omaha is on Saturday, April 18th, Earth Day Omaha, from noon to 8. There are going to be over 100 booths of information and organizations that they could get involved with, either in a volunteer capacity or just to learn from. And Dr. Richard Komp's going to be a speaker there too as well.
So people can look forward to actually meeting you in person that way. In just the few minutes that we have remaining, Dr. Komp, where are we right now? In just, if you could briefly state, where are we with solar energy, and then I'm going to ask you about where we headed here, realistically.
Solar energy right now is in the climbing stage. The technology is relatively mature. Crystalline silicon solar cells have been around for decades now, and there's been quite a pattern of the learning curve has dropped the price to the point where they're really quite affordable. And there are places in the United States where, for instance, builders are building subdivisions where every house comes with photovoltaic modules and hot water heaters, and hopefully the hybrids soon. And the homeowner who buys that house, the increase in his mortgage because of these things that are installed is cheaper than the decrease in his utility bill, so that it becomes cheaper from day one for the homeowner to do it. And in commercial buildings, there are people who are doing clever packages of financing in states where they have really good rebates. New York State is an example. An entrepreneur will rent the roof of a big box store like a Walmart or something, and then install photovoltaic modules covering the whole roof. The down payment that he pays for the project comes from the rebate from the state of New York. The amount of money that the electricity that is being produced generates pays the bank loan plus some extra for his profit, and he pays the owner of the building in kilowatt hours to help run the air conditioning and lighting and so forth. And because the array has insulated the roof, it cuts the electricity load. So the entrepreneur did all of this with no investment of his own money, and the person who owns the store saves all this money with no investment of his money. And the only payback time you talk about is the length of the time of the loan that the bank has. And the bank is assured a payment each month because you know the weather conditions, even with the climate change,
right.
We've adjusted the numbers a little because climate has already changed.
Sure.
It's not a matter of argument anymore. So this is the sort of thing that is happening. And there are municipalities that put in solar roofs on the parking lots, and it costs the city nothing to do this.
Well, and I'm glad that you're bringing up the cost, and because I think there are a lot of people that think that this is a very expensive move. And Rita, we just have 15 seconds. When is Dr. Kump coming back?
It'll be sometime next year. We really need people to join the Nebraska Solar Energy Society to be able to afford to have him come back. We gave out of pocket this time from private individuals to get him to come, and it's been a real effort. The website is www.ceen.unomaha.edu/NSES for Nebraska Solar Energy Society.
Great, and we've got that. We have two other
Great.
websites too, Rita, that we want to put up quickly here, if we could, that we want to talk to folks about. EarthDayOmaha.com and earthday.envirolink.org. I want to thank you all so much for joining us. We appreciate your expertise.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks to you at home who are watching. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at unotv.unomaha.edu. If you'd like to share your comments about this show, call UNO TV at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours.
The 12th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Saturday at 6 p.m.